welcome to another episode of On Patrol with the Suffolk County PBA. I'm CJ Hunter, the treasurer of the PBA.
I'm Tanner Brandmore, the sergeant at arms of the PBA.
And today we're excited to have Scott Frayler on with us. Scott is a financial planner whose offices are right downstairs in the PBA building. And he can provide all sorts of services to not just our membership, but to the general public. Thanks for coming on, Scott.
Very happy to be here, boys.
So for everybody out there watching, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey into becoming like a financial planner. Is this something you always wanted to do, or is it something that kind of developed as you were trying to figure out your path in college?
That's a good question. Thanks for asking it. I'm sure like both of you, you didn't know what you wanted to be when you grew up, right? There's decisions to be made. We all thought we were going to be an actor, a band member, or a professional athlete, whatever you thought. And at some point, those dreams become something that you have to let go and you have to go into a profession. And for me, I was able to go to Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, majored in business management, thought about going into the corporate world, but I was blessed my junior and senior year to be able to intern at a company called Mutual Incorporated that had ties to the Suffolk County PBA at that time. The president, Bill Devine, who was a mentor of mine, had a deep relationship with the police department, as his dad was somebody that was hurt in the line of duty and eventually succumbed to his injuries. So that, along with the feeling that I had personally as being the son of a police officer, grandson of a police officer, and actually now brother of a police officer, I got to see what they were doing on an ongoing basis, and it felt like the right thing to do. And that's what that kind of led me into doing what I do now.
So it's always great to hear when somebody kind of just naturally falls into their line of work. And as you've said, you're the son of a police officer, grandson, now the brother of a police officer, and you kind of fell into this line where, you know what, I'm not going to be a police officer, but I could help police officers. I could help their families, and I could help the general public just like a police officer would with their whole financial plans and eventually getting to, say, retirement or whatever their goals may be.
For sure. I feel blessed every day with the men and women I get to work with. Not only Suffolk County police officers, but other officers across Long Island and actually New York State. It is a tremendous gift. It is unbelievable to pay it forward, to give whatever talents I might have to help them and their families in any way that I can. And it really is something that I'm happy with. Everyone is not happy with their chosen profession. They just do it to provide for their family. I'm blessed that I can say deep down that I love what I do. I really do. And it's wonderful. And I did have that pull to be a Suffolk County police officer. I don't know how many people know that, but I did get called for the test. And I did go to the informational, and they tell you to wear a suit. And I can tell you that someone did not, and they got reamed out and thrown out. And I was like, wow, if I do this, am I going to be able to keep, a stern face through the academy? Mm-hmm. But what really changed for me was I really had a passion for what I do. I knew I was going to be able to do this. It was right at the precipice of whether I could make this a career or not. And I have to say, for everybody that went through the academy and was privileged enough to work with Ron Ross there, he gave one of the best speeches I ever heard as far as this is a calling. Don't do it for reasons that were either familial or financial or anything. It's not a calling. And I always felt that way. And although I had a calling to maybe go that route, I just felt in my heart that I liked doing what I was doing more. And that's what I decided to do.
I'm glad you bring that up and kind of call it a calling, right? Because we talk about that very often. Doing police work is a calling, and helping people is a calling. And even if you don't answer that call of helping people as a police officer, you found another way to do it. I say it all the time. Like I feel like I don't work for a living, right? I feel like I'm just always busy. I'm proud of what I do. I get to help people constantly. I get to help our membership, which is the people out on the road helping the general public. So I just feel busy all the time, but I feel like I don't work for a living. I love what I do. And I don't think it can be understated how important that is for somebody to be able to sustain, a high level for a long period of time as far as, the output of their work.
Yeah, I'd say something similar between you both of being police officers and myself being a financial advisor is you're never really off.
Right.
Right? It's a 24-hour-a-day job. Now, I'm not remotely comparing the dangers that you have with us, but we all know if you're at a party because you're a police officer, somebody's going to know somebody that got a ticket or they have this special feeling about the law or something. So you're always kind of working, even if you're at a family party. So that's the same thing for us. Something could happen overnight in the Asian markets that could totally trip up our day the next day. And again, it's not the life or death scenarios that you go through, but it's something that you have to be constantly on your game. You have to be reading all the time, staying current with everything that's going on, because like you, and again, although in a different kind of relationship, I have that relationship with my clients that I take on that responsibility to know that these dollars are either going to help them in retirement, help their kids go to college, help them as they get old. And that's something that I take, to heart. I don't look at my clients as just number 131. I have a relationship with all of them, and I just want the best for them always. And that's why, when the market goes up or down, I'm feeling good, or I'm definitely going along for that ride with them. And that's why, we send out those emails, and we're part of the community. We care.
And the confidence that your customers have, or the clients that you have, is huge. Like they can go straight to you. You're right in our building. It takes a lot of stress off their plate, knowing that you take care of them financially.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've been blessed to do this now almost 25 years. We don't charge anything to sit down. We are gladly willing to help anybody in any aspect of financial planning that they need. That includes their family as well, because I just look at it as one big blue family. So whatever we can do for anybody, I'm happy to be there in any way, shape, or form.
So tell us a little bit about your company, Blue Line Wealth Management. How's it structured? You have a couple of partners there.
Yeah, so Blue Line Wealth Management started in 2019. So we're going to be in our 7th year next year. It's been tremendous. We do work out of the PBA office. We are able to get to other places if need be, for sure. We deal with a lot of the different police benevolent associations all across Long Island: Nassau, Suffolk, Southold, Southampton Village, Southampton Town, Riverhead, Garden City, a lot of other ones that I'm sorry if I did not say it, but we could just keep going. So every member is important to us, and anything that we can do to help those members means a lot. So back to Blue Line. At a certain point in your career, you're always looking to kind of go your own way, follow your heart and your ideas. And that's what I did. In 2019, I just decided, you know what, now's the time. Let's form the company based on what I think is the most important way and the most successful way to move forward, to make it a true client experience and to help everybody with the outreach that we can.
Right. And, being in financial planning, I'm assuming it was always kind of the long-term goal and plan to be your own business owner too, and kind of run it the way you want to, your own shop.
Yeah. So it's a tremendous feeling, but it's also a tremendous responsibility. And you do mention it, that I do have 2 partners. I have Sean Carey and Jeff Greco that do a wonderful job. Jeff is really focused on the benefit side. Sean's also involved in the financial planning, and also the benefit side. So being able to lean on them is certainly a great thing. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, Courtney Griffith, who started Blue Line with me in 2019, who is literally the rock of our organization. And she certainly, deals with a lot of questions on a daily basis. And, she cares as much as I do. So truly blessed to work with the people that we work with.
Now, prior to opening up your own shop, Blue Line Wealth Management, was there any involvement with Jeff, Sean, or Courtney in your prior company that you worked with?
So to be fair, the only relationship really there was with Courtney. She was my assistant at my former company, Mutual Inc. And, now she's the director of operations for Blue Line, because she is a wonderfully talented person. And we probably give her a little bit of too much to do at times, but I couldn't be as successful. The firm couldn't be as successful without her. Sean came on post starting Blue Line Wealth Management. Jeff was there at the beginning as well, for sure.
So what was that separation from Mutual Inc. like? Because you bring Courtney with you, and Courtney's great. I see Courtney downstairs all the time. Was it almost like a Jerry Maguire moment? Like, who's coming with me? Is Courtney coming with me, or was it kind of pre-planned? Everything was not as spontaneous.
No, I mean, Mutual Inc. is a wonderfully run company. It was just really a more individual decision. I was not looking to go along with anybody else but Courtney. And I think that both of us are better for that situation, for sure.
So being a financial planner and having all these services you provide to people, like you had already mentioned it, sometimes you might sit down with somebody and their main goal is saving up for their kids' college. Sometimes it's preparing for retirement. Sometimes, maybe it's a short-term goal, maybe it's a long-term goal. What are some of the things you see most often and some of the services or plans that you provide and help set up for people?
Great question. So there's all different stages of financial planning. And to be fair, different things happen at different times. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, part of your responsibility is also dealing with tragedy, right? Sometimes tragedies happen. Well, tragedies never happen at a good time, but at an inopportune time. You could be younger when something bad happens, or you could be older, or you could be trying to deal with your parents and their potential decline. Mm-hmm. But as a general rule, I don't look at it in terms of saying, I'm starting my career, I should do this. I'm retired, I should do this. It's really based on that individual. What do I mean by that? Countless times I've talked at the academy, and you heard it probably when you got on the job. You're going to be working with an older police officer and they're going to tell you, you have to max out your deferred comp. You have to get life insurance. Well, the reality is at a starting salary, you probably can't max out deferred comp, right? If you're not married with a child, do you really need life insurance at that point? Now, there could be people that could argue that you might. I would argue that you probably don't. And again, so you do what you can. And I think one of the big mistakes people make, especially younger people, is they listen to that person that's telling them to put all their eggs in that deferred comp because they either started late or whatnot. But the reality is there's a definitive balance that everybody should have between cash in the bank, investable retirement accounts, and maybe an account that you have that's not in a retirement account, but that's tax managed so that you're buying a house, you're putting in a pool, your child's getting married, for college, for any of those things. Those dollars are available for you, not just a deferred comp loan or money that's sitting in a cash account that's maybe not making the right interest.
You can't really touch until a certain point in your life.
Right. So like the one thing with deferred comp, as great as it is, it does give you that tax deferral, but the only way you can access those funds is taking a loan, and you could be hit with different interest rates, et cetera. But it's still only $50,000 or what 50% of your account value is. Whereas if you save on the non-retirement side, you have the ability certainly to touch any or all of it. And you could set that up on a month-to-month basis, like a lot of our clients do, to take advantage of those happenstances when you might need money outside of just the traditional retirement situation.
I feel like the communication of going back and forth with your clients is huge because, like you said, everybody's on a different, they need different things in their life. And I feel like being able to talk to your financial advisor or manager, it's huge to set up them for success.
Yeah, I think the one thing that if we're just staying in the police world right now, the pension is going to take care of the nuts and bolts of retirement, right? Nobody's eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with the unbelievable job the PBA has done over time, which leads to tremendous pensions. So getting back to planning the deferred compensation specifically, is you don't need to hit home runs. Singles and doubles will get you to the Hall of Fame there, right? And as these portfolios get bigger and bigger by nature of how much money the individual might be making and being able to put in there, there's nothing wrong with pulling some off the top and putting in a stable value. Back to the question you had asked, CJ, what life events drive different decisions? Well, let's say you get to the point where you might have $1 million in deferred comp, right? Well, you also might be 50 years old. It doesn't mean that I made 50 years old, I got to move it all to cash, or I'm retired, I'm moving it all to cash. But we do have cash. We all have money in the bank for a reason, right? So maybe if you have $1 million and you move $200,000 over to stable value, you still have $800,000 being invested, right? That's not out of the market by any means, but that $200,000 now sets up the distribution for you for the next 10 years potentially, right? So different things for different people, for sure.
Right. I like how having the accessibility to you and being able to talk at any given moment, you could kind of adjust and adapt with your times and what goals you're facing as far as whatever financial plan you're trying to put into place. And I also like how it's not a one size fits all either, right? I mean, you said, maybe a general rule of thumb is max out deferred comp. Yeah, that'd be great, but not everybody could afford to max out deferred comp. I know I couldn't early on. I'm just finally getting to that point now. because everybody has different stages in life, different things you're dealing with, right? Maybe you're saving for a wedding, maybe you're saving for a house, you got newborn kid on the way and you're towards the bottom of the pay scale. All these things come into play. General rule of thumb, yeah, max out as soon as you can. But that's not necessarily the right thing for everybody. And you don't want to strap yourself and be too thin with cash available in case there is an emergency.
Without a doubt. I mean, you can only do what you can. And if you overdo it, you get in the position where you're just like you were 5 years earlier, maybe not making that much money because you've put so much into deferred comp, right? So you want to have the accessibility to some funds in case there's an emergency. Or let's look at the positive, an opportunity, right? Let's say you have an opportunity to buy a piece of property or something comes up that you always wanted to do, and now you have that cash to do it. Right? Again, retirement's going to be okay. The pension's going to provide the baseline there. Social Security, that'll be along down the line after that also as extra dollars. But if we can plan, and we can plan with retirement assets, but also non-retirement assets, that's big. And again, forget about financial planning. How many people have money sitting in a checking or savings account earning 0.15? If you have no need for those dollars, slide them into a high yield money market account. Make 3.5% or 4%. That simple move will generate more interest for you, which will help you on your lifetime goals and not expose you to any risk.
You want your money making money for you, not just sitting there.
Always, yes.
So one of the things we talk about from time to time, and you're a father, you have young kids yourself. We talk about generational wealth and trying to set up our children so that they could be in the best starting point as possible when they reach adulthood. I know John Knapp brings this up all the time. John's our first vice president, and he's like a mathematical whiz, right? He's always looking at that. Yeah, he's always looking at different, deferred comp scenarios and T-notes and bonds and IRAs and all these different things. The guy's a mathematical whiz. And he talks about generational wealth all the time and trying to set up his kids. What sort of plans do you have or do you suggest for trying to build that generational wealth if for somebody out there that does have young kids?
Well, I will say this too. I'd probably say 75% of the people that come in when they retire tell me, this money's for the kids, the deferred comp. We don't need it. Okay. Well, whether you do need it or don't need it, you want to make the right plan in order to transfer that over to the kids, right? So let's go back again to that tax managed type account. That money goes to your kids tax free. Retirement assets, as great as they are, your kids will pay taxes on them. So there are things like Roth conversions and other things that you can do to minimize the taxation to the next generation. But the reality is, again, whether it's buying property, whether it's using those little money markets to get more interest, whether it's starting a non-retirement account, whether it's pre-planning for college so you don't put them behind the 8 ball with interest payments, right? All those things lead to generational wealth. And if you can secure your own future and not have to have your kids make the payments for you and as you age, that's what really makes a difference. And again, there's life insurance opportunities, there's estate plannings, there's irrevocable trust that can help prevent some, loss of assets. And those are all things that we could talk about with clients.
And that makes perfect sense too. When you don't want to be a burden on your kids later in life, right? So it's not always just about creating positives for them, but it's limiting the negatives too. You don't want to become that financial burden where they're paying for you to have your home health care aids because you can't afford it. You don't want them covering your property taxes because you can't afford it, right? You don't want to be that negative for them either.
Your first responsibility is to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Like the reality is when you're on the airplane, if you're sitting in that row, you have to take care of yourself first before you take care of the people around you. Not that our nature as parents wouldn't be, we'll always give everything up for our kids. And nobody wouldn't do that. But you're doing more for your kids to create a stable environment for yourselves. And the way that you can do that to the next level is really plan. Make sure you have beneficiaries on all your accounts. Don't have things go that you could have a beneficiary on, but you don't. And now it's, going to probate.
You change your beneficiaries too in case there's an issue of. I know a lot of people get divorced and whatnot, and they forget to change their beneficiaries.
Yeah, right? So that's a big thing. You got to take a look at those beneficiaries every year and update them. Another thing, people have their first child, right? Don't add 2 and 3 onto their beneficiary thing because we'll get to that. Things that we have to do. Certainly, divorce is prevalent in our society. Same thing. Make sure everything's up to speed and up to date.
Right. Because at the end of the day, those beneficiary forms really dictate a lot of where that money is going. And there may be situations where you get divorced, excuse me, And you still want your ex to get that money because maybe they're responsible for taking care of your kids, right? But everybody's choice is different. Keeping that information up to date is the best way to make sure what happens with your money is exactly what you intended it to be.
I couldn't have said it better.
Now, we talk a lot about generational wealth and your kids and stuff, but, having 2 kids of your own, you're very involved in the community and, coaching kids, right? You're coaching basketball, you're a father first, you're a husband, and then you do this. So tell us a little bit about your life at home, your community involvement with the coaching of the sports and everything.
Well, I'm sure like a lot of people out there that are watching this, whether you're going to the game or coaching the game, there's never a lack of games to be going to, practices, et cetera, right? We feel like we're part-time bus drivers. But yeah, I have 2 daughters. My wife, Anne-Marie, who I love more than anything in the world. My daughters, Dylan and Charlie. Dylan's 13, Charlie's 11. I can't believe Dylan will be going to high school next year. That'll be pretty crazy. They're both, into sports big time. Charlie loves soccer a little more than basketball. Dylan loves basketball a little more than soccer, but those are their 2 sports. And I've certainly been blessed with the ability to coach both of them at times. And, I've been able to coach my older daughter's travel team and all the girls that I've been coaching for multiple years now. It's amazing. And then last year I was given the opportunity to coach at St. Anthony's on the varsity level with Coach Flaherty and Coach Mike and Coach Anthony. And that's been a tremendous experience too. I mean, I never would have thought that I'd be coaching at St. Anthony's, but it's a blessing. I'm just around really great people. I've been blessed with, the people I've been around in the police world, the basketball world. I'm just truly blessed. There's nothing else I can say that, but community involvement for sure. Our daughters go to St. Pat's in Huntington Village, and I think that's been a critical part in their development. We take that really serious. We love going to church, and it kind of kicks in that helping others mantra that my girls have picked up, and they actually do something that's coming up pretty soon. Not to be a commercial for it, but they did something what's called a cheer bus. And what the cheer bus is they raise money and they help people in the surrounding community that are going through a tough time. And I was fortunate enough to travel behind the bus last year and to see the kids get out, and there's disco elves and they're dancing around and they're playing music, and see the faces from these kids and their families that are getting the help. And I have to say, and Tanner, you were a big part of it, it was an absolutely unbelievable experience that we had the 2nd Precinct police car behind there just to keep everything moving along and keep everybody safe. It gave everybody that assurance that everything was going to be okay. And I don't think it could be understated how much that meant to the kids, the families, and also the families that were affected that day. It was cool to see a police car. The police officer got involved. She was doing a couple little dances with the kids, and it was just fantastic.
That's awesome to hear. And I know the CEO, Kevin Williams, over there, the 2nd Precinct, is phenomenal over there, and he got that done to help you guys out over there. To give him a big shout out on this episode.
Kevin was phenomenal. I'm sure hopefully he can do the same thing this year, because again, it was a tremendous experience building that relationship between the community and the police, and that's as important as it gets.
Yeah, community involvement with the police is phenomenal. I love seeing stuff like that because it just builds that trust between the community and us that is lacking in some jurisdictions outside of Suffolk County that get a lot of negative headlines nationally.
And why would you not do that when you're trying to help the less fortunate in the community? It's a win all around, I think.
Absolutely.
And it goes along with what we were kind of talking about earlier in the episode, like that passion to kind of help people and be of service to people, right? This is just another way of you as a coach and as a parent teaching a younger generation the value of being involved with the community and, providing some sort of service some way, however you can, given your age, your abilities, your skill sets.
Without a doubt. I mean, you got to use the tools that God gives you, whatever that might be, whether it's your time, whether it's your treasure, whether it's a specific talent. You have to do it the best you can, always. Mm-hmm.
So, we had Danny Calandona on, a few months back, and Danny is the president of the Good Foundation in the Suffolk County Police Department, which is a great foundation, Guardians of Our Dependents. They do a lot to help the surviving families of police officers who pass away. But what makes them a little different is it's not just about line of duty deaths. Sometimes police officers get a terminal illness that has nothing to do with line of duty, and they pass away early on in life, leaving behind a family. So Danny created this foundation to help families like that sometimes don't get the same benefits and recognition as, say, a line of duty death. And Danny, in that episode, said a lot of nice things about your father, Jeff Frayler, who was at the time, he had served in ESU with Danny's father. Danny's now an ESU cop as well. But Jeff, knowing that Danny was going through his teenage years without a father, he kind of took a little bit more of a role than, say, other people may have in being involved in Danny's life.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that we can all say as, children of police officers is you almost feel like you're always getting gypped on their time, right? Whether, mom or dad couldn't get to a birthday, or they came late, or Christmas was late, or Christmas was early, or you did your birthday on a different day than your own birthday. All those things that you sacrifice. And I know how much it hits you, the police officer, that you can't get to anything and everything. I mean, I can, and I don't have the same type of schedule that you have. But, I can say from that episode that I did listen to, and from talking to Dan, I had no idea that my dad was going to his wrestling matches. Not a clue. I did know that my dad worked with Mr. Calandona, and Mr. Calandona was sick with cancer. And Dan was probably one of my earlier friends that I knew that something like that happened to their dad. So that was a traumatic situation for me and my brother Brian as kids. But again, my parents happen to be divorced. My dad did the best he could of all times, being everything for us. But there'd be games that he'd miss, and you'd be upset about that. And now as an adult, and things that you can't get to everything, and you feel that guilt that you can't make every game or every concert or every, little thing at school, to know that that's where he was at those times, that just makes it all the more wild that he should have been there, and to see what Dan's done with his life. And he had that same thing, maybe do this or do that, but he became a police officer. He's an unbelievable emergency service team member. And more importantly, what he's done with the Good Foundation is that will be his legacy. There'll be other emergency service police officers, but the Good Foundation will be because of him.
Right. Yeah. I've always had a tremendous amount of respect for your father. He dedicated his life and career to serving the public and serving PBA members. He was a PBA trustee, a PBA treasurer, eventually a PBA president, served a lot of years on this board, did a lot of good work. But to hear stories like that sometimes go unnoticed, that you don't necessarily get the recognition for, and that he wasn't looking for the recognition for.
No.
But, Danny came on this show and was very proud and quick to make sure that everybody knew what kind of man your father was. I
mean, that's pretty important, and it's nice to hear as a son. When people talk to me and they say, and sometimes when they come into the retirement consultations of, if you see your dad, please thank him for all the hard work that he had. Because like we just spoke, there was a lot of times where we just didn't get to see him. He was always picking up that phone for that member, trying to do his best. But at the same time, there was never a feeling that for any of my siblings that, he didn't love us. He wouldn't want to be at the spots that we were. And, I think like everything, the one thing that my dad gave me was, surround yourself with good people, trust what they say, evaluate that information. You still might make a different decision, but know that if you have the right people around you, you can trust what they're saying is their honest and truthful opinion. So put that into the mix of what your decision is. And I think that he was able to do that in all stages of his career. He had wonderful partners with my Uncle Ed, with Billy King, and then in the PBA office, with everybody that he worked with, and then he had, kind of looked at somebody that would have been an unbelievable successor, being Noel, and really put the responsibilities of some of the PBA stuff that he took all the time because he felt that he was the next guy, and kind of let him flourish and do his thing. And it's awesome to see the tremendous relationship that they have, because a lot of, presidents, former presidents, maybe they don't get along as much. But, when Dad retired, he kind of took a step back, wasn't looking for any spotlight or anything, and kind of let Noel go and do what he did. And now you see the same thing with, Lou Civello and Noel, right? As great as Noel is, Lou's going to hopefully take it to the next level. And he's a tremendous president, as everybody on the board is tremendous. And I've been, again, fortunate and blessed with working with such great people from Tom Muratori, Bill Mock, Bill Holmes, Jimmy Lennon, the John Nats, the Mike Simonellis, Tom Tatarians. I could keep going, but I can't, because there's just too many names. But the force of good that's in the PBA is like nothing else. You guys selflessly give so much, and it's amazing for me to see it from downstairs.
Yeah, I think that goes along with a lot of what we've talked about in the past too, with surrounding yourself with good people and a good team, and kind of making sure that there's people that have that work ethic and that drive to take this ball and continue running with it. And that's not something that you just want to do in PBA world, but something you want to do in the financial world too, right? With your own company. I mean, one of your partners, Sean, is younger than you. So I assume that there's a little bit of a role where, you're teaching him as he comes along and he gets to learn from that experience.
Right. So, I mean, I think it's anybody's responsibility to help the next generation, because you've been through different things that they haven't been through. Right. And I've been always blessed with older role models that I could go to, and to be honest, they're pretty much all police officers, right? Like I could name an Ernie Thompson, a Bill Plant, Dan Fitzpatrick, guys that you could listen to, hear different stories, what they went through, not only police on the police side, but family, friends, loss, different things that everybody's been through what you've been through before. We all think that we're the only people that have ever felt this way, but everybody's felt that way. But if you can have the right role model, they can kind of help you through it. And that's something that I'm trying to do for him, for sure.
That mentorship's really important. And I got to give, I go to Sean a lot with my financial stuff. Like he manages my LPL account. I have to say, if I texted Sean right now, he'd respond to me in like 5 minutes, get me an answer. He'd sit down with me whenever I wanted to sit down. So he does a great job for you.
Appreciate that. It's always good hearing that he's doing a good job.
So with your career progression, starting off in somebody else's firm and then branching off, opening your own, and now having your own partners. Do you view this as your end game, or what's like the next step? Do you have any sort of goals in mind in the next year, 5 years, 10 years?
Well, I will say to anybody that's panicked about my retirement, I'm a long way away from that. So I'll be hopefully working for a while, continue to do what I do. Listen, I've been blessed. I get to work with the best people every day. So I would never want to leave. What's great about having such good partners is that time that I'm able to maybe take back for myself a little bit, and having the challenge of coaching, whether it's at the high school level or at the younger levels, because you need to find something that's going to, just motivate you to again, right? Because no matter what your job is, it kind of gets to be routine. Every day, we're going to get a little different situation, a variation of the same theme. But in those times where, you can get out and coach and you can do different things that will be completely different, that's truly what kind of gets me going. And to be honest, again, I've been blessed with some opportunities maybe to, expand Blue Line more into the Northeast region or even nationwide. But I've kind of turned that down, because what's important to me, honestly, is being home with my 2 girls. I don't want to miss anything that they have going on. I want to be able to devote the time I need to my clients, right? And every time you maybe go somewhere else, maybe the people here might not get as much of your attention. And to be honest, the people here deserve my attention. And I don't really need to expand beyond our capacity, because I never want to give them anything less than the best.
I think there's something to be said about that too, because being in the financial world, people would typically think like you're out there just chasing the dollar all the time, but you've given up some opportunities to attempt to expand further to make sure that you can continue to provide the same level of service to your current customers, because you guys have that personal touch. Like Tanner said, he could text Sean at any given time, right? We could text you at any given time. There's that personal touch, that personal connection, that availability. And also, you don't want to set aside other things that are important to you. I think that says a lot about your character and how you are as a man and a father and a husband, right? You want to be able to get to those sporting events for your kids. You want to be able to get to the St. Anthony's basketball games and help a younger generation of kids growing up, learn certain values, right? Because sports teach us a lot about values and work ethic as kids are going into adulthood. So I love hearing that you've actually given up some opportunities for expansion to be able to hold on to tight what you've already built and what you're proud of.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you have one life to live, right? And unfortunately, Tanner's you guys are both a little bit younger than me, but as you look at
Tanner's even more younger.
As you look at the time horizon, right? It's getting smaller and smaller on the back end. So you want to do what's going to make you happy. And really what makes me happy is being with my family. The extra time I could spend with my parents, the extra time I can definitely spend with my girls. I mean, I would not miss anything that they do. And back to, owning your own company, what is good and bad is maybe if they have something at school at 10 in the morning that you have to get to, well, then you're working till 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. Like you guys, work doesn't end at 4 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock. It's, the night meetings. It's the organizational stuff that you have to go to. And one thing I will also say, which has been tremendous from the leadership of this PBA, now that we're kind of all the same age, they understand that if I can't get to a meeting, it's not because I don't want to be. It's because I'm either coaching or my girl's having an event, right? And you're going to go through that. Tanner, you're not there yet, but you'll go through it, right? When your kids have something, no matter how important this might be, that struggle is so hard, and you try to do your best to get to both. It
is a difficult balance. Right now I coach my son's T-ball team, right? They're young, but we're still trying to do the best we can. I got a great team of coaches that coach with me, great guys that are involved in the community. And, my daughter's soccer schedule is crazy right now too. It's hard to get to everything. Trying to find that work-life balance isn't always easy. I try to make sure I get to every game, right? That's how I try to balance it out. But it's impossible to get to every practice.
You can make an unlimited amount of money in your life, but you can't. You only get a certain amount of time.
Right.
So it's important to spend the time the way you want to spend it with the people that you want to spend it with.
Right. On your tombstone, it's not going to say, here lies Tanner, he made every meeting, or here lies, CJ, he had $1 million in his deferred comp. Like, that's just not what life's about. Right. It helps you improve your life, and making those decisions makes things better, but it's not what makes the life.
Right. So, we covered a lot today, your work history, how you've gotten into this line of work, some of the family and community stuff. But what do you see next in the market? Like, I feel like every time I turn on CNBC or Fox Business News, I feel like a lot of the narratives are starting to change, where there's talk of, everybody talks about market volatility, a potential tech bubble coming. And I even see certain advising changing. Like when I was growing up, everybody always said, buy a house, right? Get into the real estate market. Now, just recently on CNBC, I saw somebody talking about the new advice is to rent within your means instead of buy within your means. So what do you see as like the current state of the market, and what has kind of changed over time in your 20-something years of being in financial planning?
So it's a great question, right? And back to that thing that we feel like we're the only people going through a certain feeling at a time, right? History doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes, right? Is a famous saying. And that's the truth, because the reality is, whether you're talking about CNBC, Fox Business, or for that matter, any publication, right? Fear sells. I would ask both of you. Market's up 300 points. You might take a look at your account, go, okay, boom, now you're on to the next thing. Market goes down 300 points, 1,000 points, whatever. It's, oh my God, I got to watch CNBC to see what the reason is, right?
Right.
And the reality is there's never necessarily one reason. It's the justification that's constantly being put out there for every move down or move up. Markets are just cycles. They're going to have good ones and bad ones. And the reality is, if you can kind of keep that frame of mind, and again, slide money that you don't need for later, maybe over to a little bit more secure situation. That's a good idea. Back to that person that might be fortunate enough to have $500 or $1 million in deferred comp. There's nothing wrong with moving some to the sidelines, right? Mm-hmm. So that money is secure for those times where we have volatility. But volatility can also be your friend, right? When you're buying biweekly into your 401k, 457, that's what you want. If the market just went like this, nobody would make money, right? So back to your question. Yes, we think volatility will be prevalent, but we think that's by nature of the news cycle, by how many people have accounts now. How many younger guys do you know have Robinhood accounts?
Right.
I mean, that wasn't the case 10 or 20 years ago. So, and the information is so overwhelming that like everybody thinks they're a genius, that they're going to make a move here or there. The reality is market's going to have ebbs and flows. Right now we're in an interest rate cutting cycle, which is usually productive for both bonds and equities. So we should be good. We should be moving into more positive things. And then, the next business revolution of AI, that should make companies more profitable. So if we can kind of get away from the noise and just say, if interest rates are going down, AI is a profitable enterprise for companies, we should be in a pretty good spot. Now, that doesn't mean that this week's not going to be down or next month's not going to be down. But as we keep going, the market has continually gone up, right? And that's what we have to remember. Just make sure you have the cash that you need for the immediate. And then the long-term stuff, trust what's always worked.
I feel like, especially for the younger guys on our job, we have a lot of new younger guys. And I feel like the first thing like we were talking about, when you hear a lot of negative news, you think to yourself, maybe I'll stop putting money into the market, into your deferred comp or whatnot. Can you just talk a little bit about how important it is to kind of like ride through that wave of like the up and down, the volatility, especially for a younger member who's going to be putting money in for the next 20, 30 years?
Yeah, I can't say it enough. Sometimes people make the mistake of saying, I'm going to leave my money, but I'll stop putting the new money into the market. I'm going to put my new money into the stable. I never understand that, right? Mm-hmm. If you're worried about the market, move what you have and then put the new money into the market, right? Because that new money hasn't really had any loss.
Right.
If you put your $300 in next Tuesday and the market went down, 10%, you lost $30. If you had 500,000 in there and it goes down 10%, you miss $50,000.
Right.
So the new money is not the concern. It's the older money, right? But again, it goes back to time horizon. Do you really need it? Nobody's taking all their money out and cashing it in the day they retire.
Right.
And like people sometimes have that feeling of that's what you might do, but you're not. You're going to pull a small percentage on a yearly basis, whether that's for a second house, just to supplement income, just to go on trips. So if that's going to be your case, if you're only going to be pulling a small amount every year, then have that amount in cash. Because listen, hey, if we're all going to go to a basketball, baseball, football game tonight, are we selling our Apple to do that? No, we're going to go to the ATM. We're going to take some money out of the bank, which is your stable value of your retirement account, right? So it's just common sense things that I think people they try to make it more complicated than it is. And again, back to the blue line philosophy is we have a very unique client, right? They have their pensions. They're going to have termination pay. They're going to have all these different things working for them. Now, how do we go about making retirement as good as it can be? Well, we have a balanced approach. In retirement, we make sure we have enough cash on hand to do what we need to do. But we also encourage our clients, like, if you wanted to get a piece of property, what is that doing, right? What if we use the deferred compensations distribution? Let's say you take that $20,000 a year that you're allowed to at 59.5, and that's going to go pay for your mortgage and HOA for a place in Florida. Mm-hmm. Well, now you've made taxable money non-taxable for your kids, right? And you got a little place to go visit. So again, I'm not telling anybody what their dreams are, but the other thing is use your money. You didn't save it not to use it. Mm-hmm. You want to use it.
I feel like buying like a condo or a house, that's another asset too. So even like you take that money out and you're putting it into another asset, which your kids can then use or sell eventually down the road.
Absolutely. And, for a lot of us that, our parents weren't blessed with making a ton of money, how nice would it be if you were a young family, your mom or dad had that place down in Florida that on that vacation from school, that the airline prices might be a little more, but at least you're staying someplace for free.
Right.
So all those things are, a smart thing for clients in retirement or even before retirement.
So you touched on it a little bit a couple minutes ago, but how much do you see now where people come in thinking they know more than they actually know, especially with those people that now have those Robinhood accounts that are constantly making trades or some of those younger kids who get all their news from, like, say, a blogger who's talking about crypto all the time, right? So the availability of information, as good as it is, I feel like sometimes it could work in the opposite way too.
100%. We've all been humbled with, expectations or decisions we've made in all facets of our life. One thing to remember, and again, I hate to use this cliche, but the broken clock is right twice a day, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes people that are either saying on the positive, the market's going to go to 50,000 or the market's going to crash tomorrow. Look at their past statements. Is this somebody that's always predicted a crash? Right. Because listen, how many times have you heard this person predicted the 2008 crash? Okay, so he gets a little bit more, she gets a little bit more credo for doing that. But if you look behind the scenes, well, they predicted that one in 2006, 2005, 2003, 2002, right. Loses a little steam, right? So I think people can be a victim of their own success too. I think one thing that people do is they get overexposed to one specific account and they're like, wow, I really love this fund. It did 30% the last 3 years. Right. But there's always a reversion to the mean. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean get out of that fund, but maybe, again, pull some profits off the top. Mm-hmm. And don't ever not be humble, because you can get humbled in this life, whether it's through financial planning or through anything else.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. With all the trading now in Robinhood and the availability of crypto, right? Because that was a big thing with Robinhood. Now you could trade crypto on it. You could even trade crypto on Venmo now. Like, crypto seems to be everywhere, and a lot of people are talking about it as a wave of the future. What sort of involvement, if any, would Blue Line Wealth Management have in a crypto market? So
we can't recommend crypto. It's an unregulated security. There are certain accounts that we can have in, clients' accounts. Like there's ETFs that have cryptos in it that we can utilize. But specific cryptocurrencies, whether it's Bitcoin or Ethereum, we cannot buy them directly, nor can any financial advisor. Mm-hmm. At this point, I'm not saying that's not going to change, but at this point, that's what's going on. And that's because it's unregulated. Correct. Okay. Have you read anywhere, or is there any predictions about it becoming regulated where a financial advisor can get involved with it? I would imagine that it's going to happen in the future. I mean, I don't think that there's, a world that we live in that, models don't have like a 1% to 2% exposure to it to some level. I don't think it's ever going to be like a heavyweight, but I think, people talk about gold and silver. It's kind of in that realm. So I'd imagine in the near future that might happen. Okay. Because that's one of those things, especially with the younger generation, younger cops, because we work with a lot of young cops now. There's just, a lot of hiring thanks to the, Romaine administration and the Suffolk County Ledge budgeting to make sure that we have the manpower and resources we need to properly police the county. A lot of these young people are into the crypto. And I feel like some of them, instead of putting money into, say, deferred comp or college savings plans or whatever, they're actually putting their money into Robinhood every 2 weeks and buying this crypto stuff instead. Well, there's always been the quick hit has probably been around since the first man walked the earth. Right. The reality is the quick, easy buck, and everybody knows somebody that maybe made that, but there's a lot of broken hearts along that path. Right. So, have a measured approach if you're going to do that. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Just like we tell everybody, don't put all your eggs in one stock either. Right. It's just balance is the best indicator of life. Right. And that goes along with what you just said about buying a place down in Florida, right? Real estate can be part of that balanced portfolio, right? It's all
diversity in the assets.
Right. Exactly. It's all part of that basket that you want at the end of the day. Yeah. And one thing I didn't address that you brought up before is that the rent situation, right? Is it better to rent? Well, if you're paying a certain rent and you're able to put money away on the side in a liquid position to save for that house that you really want, that's probably a good idea. To rush into that house that you really don't want, but you're doing it because you think it's time, back to that, I'm 30 or I'm 25, I need a house. Like, it might work for you, but it might not. Maybe you're better off just kind of hanging back, saving the money, waiting for the opportunity to get the house that you really want. Because like most things, right? Whether it's the partner you end up or with whatever, when you know what you really want, it makes that decision a lot easier. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that makes sense. I think it's a way to, adjust with the times, especially with what the prices of houses are now and what the interest rates are right now. It's always good to have that approach of what best fits today's market, not just a general rule of thumb. Yeah. I also think, especially for the younger police officers that are out there, maybe they're starting a family, maybe they're, even single or whatever, just always know that something can come, positive or negative, to throw you off your plan. Right. Right. You guys know, for me, my wife getting sick, kind of threw us off our plan. She was a teacher. She loved it. Teacher of the year a couple of times in Baldwin. She lost her passion. She loved being a teacher. And now she's turned her passion more to spending her time with the kids. And God willing, she's doing a little bit better now. But, sometimes you could be in a 2-income family and lose 1 income. Sometimes you're relying on somebody to watch your kids and then they can't anymore. You always have to have contingency plans. And that's part of the financial planning, that I kind of talk about with, clients, and saying, listen, okay, everything's great if this works out. But what happens if this happens? Right. Right. It's kind of like picking your pension option.
What people don't look at sometimes is, okay, well, sure, the joint allowance full option costs the most, right? We all know that, right? But if I take the joint allowance 50, things will be okay because I have this money in deferred comp. Well, what if things happen with deferred comp? What if it goes down? What if all these things happen? And then what you realize is, in most cases, if you take that joint allowance full, then everything's okay. So now you can use more of your deferred comp and know that your spouse is not going to be impacted. God forbid something happens, right? It's just that idea of, I just want to make sure everything's okay. And for you guys that are spending your whole lives in police cars and otherwise saying, I got to make sure everything's okay. That retirement decision that you make is a multi-million-dollar decision for both you and your family. Right? Take the time to make the right one, because when you do, life is great. When you don't, all of a sudden it's the back for the second job. Something's going to happen that you don't really need.
Right. I think there's something to be said about certain levels of guarantees and assurances too, like those options. Knowing that, obviously the single life option is always the most valuable, month to month early on. But what's the trade-off with, I have a spouse who doesn't have a pension, doesn't have a retirement, right? And what if I predecease her by 10, 15 years, right? What if, right? You want to make sure that your family is taken care of. And that goes back to what we were talking about early on, not creating a burden for your children.
Right. I mean, God willing, we're all hopefully floating up. We don't want to be looking down and go, wow, for an extra $300, I could have made this all good. Right. I mean, that's the reality. And a lot of times we look at it on its pre-tax amount, et cetera. And then you don't think, well, all right, well, after tax and after this and after that. And half the time I'm like, okay, you have X amount in deferred comp. If you really needed it that bad, we could just pull it out of deferred comp. You get to the same number.
Right. I feel like a little bit of that is just like living within your means too, like living below your means actually, because you're not being like, you're being economically savvy and not spending a ton of money on stuff that you don't need necessarily.
Right. So, I mean, you can only ride one jet ski at a time. It's always my joke, right? Sorry, I have to throw that in there all the times. I've never ridden a jet ski in my life. But to what you're saying, happens on both sides of it too. I do see a lot of people that come in and they have saved so much and they've never enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't save all this money not to be able to enjoy it with your wife, with your kids, with your husband. That's what it's for. Those memories that you make, you can't get those back either. And a lot of times for the person that was a police officer for the last 25, 30 years that maybe missed some of those memories, have the deferred comp be the new memory maker, right? And you make those memories with your grandkids, and like I see it. I mean, my dad in particular, he's at every one of my daughter's games. He might not have been able to get to ours. And full disclosure, Dad, if you're watching, I know you made 90% of them. But it's amazing. And it's a wonderful experience to have them there. It really is. It's great.
Yeah. Scott, I appreciate you coming on today. I appreciate a lot of the stuff we've spoken about. I think there's a lot of good advice out there. I think it's great for our membership and the general public to know that your services are right downstairs here in the PBA building. I think there's a lot of value to that personal touch and that personal relationship you can build with your clients. Do you have any parting words or anything you want to get out there before we wrap up this episode?
That's a great question. I think the thing I would say is when we get down on our knees at the end of the day, we want to just thank God for all the blessings that we have. We might be going through a rough patch at this specific moment, but God puts the people in our life for a reason, right? And maybe we don't say it enough to whether it's friends, family members, et cetera, how much you appreciate them. Right. Or how much you love them, and, I do my best to do that every single day with my family. And maybe I don't do it the best with my friends all the time, but, hey, I appreciate both you guys. I appreciate the fact that you asked me to be on this podcast. It's a tremendous opportunity. My first podcast. So hopefully it wasn't so bad. But I'm just blessed. I'm blessed with working with the PBA. I'm working with, police officers everywhere. I've been blessed to be able to help out for fundraisers and different things because, God's be in a fortunate position to be able to do that. and yeah, just to say thanks to the people that are in your life and say thank you for your opportunities. And when things aren't so great, know that there's another opportunity coming around the corner.
Yeah, and likewise, we appreciate your friendship. We appreciate everything you do for police officers. And as you made that statement, I remembered there was one more thing I wanted to bring up with you, and that's now your involvement with the Suffolk County Police Foundation. You are a board member on the Suffolk County Police Foundation, which is a great group that helps alleviate some of the tax burden on the county when it comes to providing some levels of the police services. You help purchase some of those tools we need to do our jobs effectively, and it saves the citizens of Suffolk County a tremendous amount of tax dollars in the end.
Yeah, so as we joke, and he said it on the podcast too, Lou Titone, my most expensive friend. Yeah, so when he came to ask me, it was certainly something that I was all in on, as a legacy to my family that's been so involved in law enforcement. Like I said, my dad obviously used to be here for 36 to 35 years. He put a big influence in there, and I thought it was my responsibility to follow suit with that. And that's what I did. So yeah, they do great things. It's a blessing to be part of that group. They really do truly care about the police. They want to help people in every way possible to be safer, to help the people that, God forbid, tragedy happens, like we talked about before. And I'm blessed to be able to be a part of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great group. Thank you for being part of that. Thank you for all your support you give to all our members and the people in Suffolk County, period. So appreciate it, Scott.
Nope. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
This was amazing.
Thank you. Appreciate it.